Imagine a world where the only living soul who understands you is your pet. As life becomes your biggest enemy, this speechless being doesn't hesitate to help you with everything he has. The manga starts, and we see a television playing something about marines and the great sea creatures that live in it. However, just outside the pixels, a battle was going on between two siblings. Hiroki wanted to learn more about the great sea creature, but his sister, on the other hand, had a different channel in mind. From the start, Hiroki was more like a timid child, and during this fight, he ended up losing the remote. As he cried out to his cruel sister, it was already too late. She immediately switched to a channel which had some idle dancing, and as he sobbed, his sister started to dance with them. Although this was just a normal fight that every sibling would have, this was creating a much bigger problem for Hiroki. As their father approached him and asked him about the reason he cried, Hiroki, on the other hand, just kept tearing up, and somehow he just drank all the bitterness and complaints that a normal kid would have. As he read his marine book with sobby eyes, his father just gave up on him. He additionally added and told him to not cry without any reason, and as he stood there, all frustrated, from the side a gem of a dog approached him with light footsteps. At first, he tried to learn about the marine life itself, but after realizing that it couldn't be done, he began to lick his teary face, and there we met the gem of a dog, Kero. He looked at Hiroki with his beautiful and hopeful eyes. As Kero didn't leave him and just stayed there with him, Hiroki finally said the things that he wanted to say to his father but couldn't. He wanted to learn more about marine life, but his sister got the best of him. As he finally smiled from the company of Kero, he tried to talk to him in his thoughts and asked if he would like to learn more about sea creatures as well, and Kero immediately followed through and let out an affirmative woof. Now he was sure that Kero really responded to him in a timely manner, and glitters went off in his eyes. As they both hugged each other, and had the best time of their lives, Hiroki learned that the best partner that he could ever ask for is his very own pet, who understood him despite his lack of communication. Later, as his father reminded everyone about how he was about to take Kero on a walk, Hiroki smiled brightly and exclaimed that he was coming too. As they placed a cute collar on Kero's neck, and as the cute little Kero himself couldn't wait to go outside, Hiroki held him near his chest, and his sister joined in with them. This was the last memory that he remembered of his Kero. As the collar that belonged to him hung around the wall, Hiroki was looking at it with dead eyes that were just filled with void and pain. His sister reminded him to hurry up or they would be late, and he apologized. As our scene swoops, we see that all of them went to the pet cremation. As the staff there greeted them, we learn the most painful thing, that our Kero had passed away, and they were there to send him off. As their father kept crying, Hiroki placed him near a table. And as Kero lay there, Hiroki's best friend closed his eyes for once and for all. As they placed his favorite snacks right next to him, their father, on the other hand, couldn't stop crying. And Hiroki gently patted his dog, who laid there closing his eyes. This dug a hole in his chest, and as he teared up, he said goodbyes to the greatest friend and partner that a human could ever ask for. The staff requested them to leave since they would start the process soon, and as they called out to Hiroki, they left Kero there and exited the place. As he glanced one more time, he saw that the door was closing on him, and something closed in him as well that day. With a loud thud, the door closed. As they all cried after coming back home, their dad had the hardest time. He wept and wished that he would have lived longer and been around to see the great things. His sister was having a hard time herself. As he offered her some tissue, she looks at him and tells him how he was a crybaby when he was a kid, but now he doesn't even shed a tear. Now, after hearing this, he let out a shaky smile and a laugh with it. The next day, as he went to school, he sat near the window and glared outside the whole time. From the side, a student asked him if he missed school yesterday, and as Hiroki heard this, he just couldn't form the words. As his mind created all sorts of answers, he couldn't say them out loud at all. As words and phrases like "don't talk to me" and "be brief" hovered around his mind, she asked him another question about whether he chose to skip school or something else, and with another fake smile and expression, he let her know that she was right. As she leaned over to him, their teacher interrupted them and told them to stop talking, and if they had anything they would like to share, they should stand up and tell that to the whole class. She also spun around and told Hiroki to visit her after school. After school, he had to visit his teacher. He slid open the door. Inside, his teacher started to spew how he had a soft voice, and wanted him to knock one more time and enter in a confident way. As his teacher handed him the results of the mock test, she held his test and asked about the university that he had chosen to study at after high school. And there his teacher glared at him with angry eyes and spewed on how he couldn't pass the university that he listed. His grades were weak, and he had already written that he was interested in marine life. Now this was his academic performance, and he wanted to reassure his teacher that he is more than interested to continue, but these things were something that he couldn't say to his teacher. Hiroki there just freezes like a robot, and couldn't form a single sentence on his own. Here we learn the truth of what he is suffering. He can't communicate whatsoever. Whenever someone would say something to him, he just couldn't look them in the eyes and state his opinion, advice, or feelings. He had all these words and phrases that he wanted to tell at the top of his lungs, but he just couldn't. As he started to see the marine world in his thoughts, his teacher calls out to him again, and he let out a voice full of confusion and told his teacher that he would just go with these choices. There was no strength in his words, and he just followed whatever his teacher was spewing. His teacher brushed him off and told him to be more careful when going home. As he entered his home, he saw the most painful sight that he could imagine. Usually, Carol would always be there to just throw away all his worries of the world, but today there was no one waiting for his return. As he entered, his sister exclaimed about how there was so much food. Hiroki's sister had a friend who just couldn't see her cry and ended up buying her all sorts of food, from donuts to cakes. As their father teased her, his sister handed him a donut and reminded him about how he liked this the most, and again, he gave them a fake smile and left them. He returned to his dark room one more time, and as he adjusted Karo's picture, Hiroki shared why he couldn't say anything. Thoughts floated in his mind like fish in the deep ocean, but he couldn't say them out loud like a normal person. It all started from something small and soon became a poison that took away his freedom of speech. Ever since he was a kid, he just couldn't say normal things in a timely manner. One time, as his friend mocked him for being too slow to answer, poor Hiroki just sat there trying to answer, and all his friends were already bored of his existence. They mocked him for being so quiet and dull. This happened all during a group project, and that day he had the hardest time of his life. After coming back home, Karo helped him cheer up, and since his father noticed his problems as well, they took him to a speech therapist. He went on about how his development had some slight disorders and mocked how kids want to create excuses to hide from school. He told them that he would get better as he grew up. Now the doctor had said this, thinking that it was normal, but things took a serious turn. As he grew older, he became a target of bullying. As his tracksuit was thrown into the trash, a few students ended up laughing at the top of their lungs and cried out how he found it quicker than they had thought. One of the bullies looked at him and spewed how this was just a joke and there should not be a reason for him to fight back or do anything, and as he mocked him on how he would grin like an idiot, Hiroki let out another smile. But deep down his thoughts cried out that he hated this. He had learned to hide his emotions and his feelings from everyone he knew. His father asked him if he had a wonderful time at school, and he just replied with some gibberish, but since he had a gem of a partner with him, he was somewhat at peace. Karo himself felt like Hiroki was hiding something, and as the next day he was about to leave for school, Hiroki hated every single second of it. School had become a place where every day was somewhat like a torture for him, and as Karo stopped him, he looked at Hiroki with hopeful and worried eyes. His father started to stop Karo and even grabbed him, but Karo was not letting go of him. His dad pulled Karo off, but he was behaving strangely, and as Hiroki looked at his partner trying his best to save him from the trash at school, tears began to flow from his eyes. He cried out about how he wanted to convey his feelings, but no matter how hard he tried, he sank deeper into his own thoughts and feelings. He tried to search for something to convey his feelings with, but darkness surrounded him, and his words disappeared, and he stood in front of people like a lost cause. As Kero stopped him from going to school on time, he cried like a broken boy. Back to the present, as he opened his eyes, and after school, he went to work at the supermarket. As he started to move boxes around, a man approached him and greeted him. The only person that somewhat felt like him was Ikari. He told Hiroki to leave and head for home, and with a casual face, he thanked him. Now Ikari himself was somewhat a quiet person and the topic of conversation for everyone at the market. He was also labeled a quiet person who was not sociable at all. Now for the first time, he somewhat felt like he was like a brother to him, and much similar to him, and for this reason, he was also able to get closer to him. As he was about to leave, the gossip masterminds called out to Hiroki and asked him to taste some sweet samples for them. Being an introvert and unsociable, he refused them, and Ikari, on the other hand, decided to offer his taste buds. Now, in everyone else's eyes, he was a difficult and creepy person, and as the two approached him with fearful eyes and faces, he took a bite, and as he chewed it, he analyzed something and told them that it was delicious. As the two were surprised by his exclamation of joy, on the other hand, Hiroki thanked heaven that he turned them down, and in the first place, he would never have said all those things about the taste. As the two of them asked for more specific details, he first glared at them and scared the living crap out of them and started to spew on how the texture was good, and so on. As they were genuinely surprised, it turned out that the person whom he thought was somewhat like him was completely different, and could make people around him happy. As he left them, he was struck with another blow. Now a person would always cling on to someone else similar to him to make themselves feel better, but as he had thought that he found a person like himself, it backfired, and as loneliness, isolation, and the pain of the death of someone precious created a void in him, he knew that the best he could do is to just live on in this harsh world. As he got back home, he was again reminded of the painful fact that his Kero was no longer there to greet him again. Inside, there were again donuts from his favorite shop, and as his father was about to say something, his sister offered him some of them. As they invited him, his father added that he should not be this sad for this long, or Kero would be sad. He brushed them off one more time. His dad got up and asked his kids if he could have beer today. Now his father was lightheaded and couldn't handle alcohol, and as Hiroki asked him why he was drinking today, his sister explained how he had a massive fight and might quit his job. As tears began to flow from his father's eyes, he exclaims and tells them how his boss treated Kero like an object, and told his father to take work more seriously and not cry over a normal pet. As he huffed for air, he cried and told them how Kero was not a normal pet but a member of their family. As his sister comforted Hiroki and told him how it was okay to let out his frustration, he apologized for some reason and lowered his head. But now we all know that a person who holds back is always broken. He wanted to talk to his parents about how he was hurt as well, but instead, he ended up telling them how nice it is for people to just say whatever they want. As these words had more weight than ever, his sister asked him about this. As he realized that maybe this wasn't something to say, she told him that this was not the time to cry about your loneliness and stupid inner thoughts. As he let out an uncomfortable smile, his sister snapped. She started to take out all her frustration and pent-up anger on helpless Hiroki, and screamed at him that he should not just stay mute and blurt out the things that he wants to say. As her screams were all targeted and somewhat painful to hear, her method of conveying her feelings and concern was completely wrong. As she exclaimed about how he was normal even after Kero's death, he just couldn't bear it anymore. And thoughts just rinsed him slowly, and his world had already been swallowed by his own inability to speak. As words like "I am sad" as well and other things just kept hovering all over his head, his mind was covered in pitch black and utter darkness. As he sank deep, he came to a point where he had to move or do anything to stay human and not come to the point of ending everything for himself. As he saw his sister tearing up and still taking out her anger, he grabbed the boiling hot coffee cup and slammed it near the wall. He got up with anger, and pin-drop silence surrounded the room, and as his father and sister stared at him, he clenched his fist and left them. As his sister kept crying, he looked at Kero's collar, and a sad wish flowed into his mind, and he cried out to him to return and explained about how their family was struggling without him. As rain fell harder than ever, he cried out to him and questioned why he had to leave them. As all the words came flowing back to his mind, he replied to every single word that he could say. He shouted that he knew that he wouldn't be back, and he knew this as well, that being sulky over his loss was pointless. His father began to call him over and over, but Hiroki, on the other hand, was on the brink of despair. He cried out how if he didn't move on, he would be stuck with these lonely thoughts until he died. He checked his father's concerned messages, and was sure that there is no way that he is returning back so soon. Ahead of him, a person was cycling toward him while singing a song to himself. As he passed Hiroki, he genuinely couldn't believe how he must have been having the best time of his life. The man stopped for a minute and glanced back to call Hiroki. Ikari removed his cover and called out to him, and even introduced himself to him once more. As they both began to interact, Hiroki waved at him with Karo's collar in his hand. As Ikari asked him about the collar, and questioned if his dog was lost, Hiroki surely wanted to explain everything to him but stopped and immediately changed the topic to something else, and asked what he was singing. Ikari started to explain from the very beginning about how he had a tough time at his work, and how there were some people talking about a trending song. But he shook him off with a cold tone and asked him the same question one more time. He started to explain to him about the song, and it turned out that Ikari was actually a big fan of an idol group which had taken the world by storm. Now, as all jolly talk took place between them, with a serious tone, he asked him again about the reason Hiroki was holding a collar. As he couldn't say anything to him, he lowered his head and explained to him about how it was difficult for him to talk about himself to anyone. And for a minute he was about to sink in his mind once more, and he reminded himself that he couldn't find the right words to tell anyone. Now Ikari, on the other hand, listened to all of this and told him that even though he could be wrong, since Hiroki was a young man with a bright future, he explained to him about how even if you say the most wonderful thing, there are still some people who will never, ever understand you. As he laughed this off, he explained to him further about how, sometimes, even with the most distorted words, a single word, and even without any words, sometimes things and feelings are conveyed. As he heard this, he remembered Karo's worried face and his concerned actions towards him. And as he remembered how Karo was always trying to convey his words to him without really saying anything, he ended up remembering Karo one more time and he cried. He couldn't hold back his tears, and he just couldn't believe that sometimes life pushes you the hardest and takes from you, but despite that, everything has a purpose. As tears overflowed, Ikari added how words that can't be found alone can always be found if you search for them with someone else. As he wiped his snot and tears, Ikari apologized. Hiroki really stopped there and cried like a broken soul. Ikari changed the topic and started to spew about a new supermarket opening near their location, and from the side, a police car noticed them and immediately stopped to check if there was something else going on between them. From far away, it did look like some sort of extortion, or even bullying. As Ikari ended up landing into some serious trouble. The next day, he placed a piece of paper over the stain, and on it, he wrote an apology, and added how he would fix it no matter what. As he was busy with this, from the side, his sister snuck by him and wished him good morning. Without wasting any more time, she apologized for the harsh words that she said to him, and she cried out to him, telling him that she knew that her brother was feeling down and that was the reason she brought the donuts in the first place, and when she couldn't cheer him up, she became angry and frustrated. As he apologized himself, both brother and sister finally opened up and restored their relationship once more. She told him to relax and worry about his studies and school and added how she would take care of their father. He ended up taking a donut as his breakfast. As he took the regular bus, his father messaged him and told him to take the day off if he was not feeling well, and in his messages, he added that he had something to say to his teacher. As he got off from the bus, he directly went over to his teacher's office. As he slid open the door, from inside his teacher asked if there was anything she could help him with. He came closer to her and started to form words, and with a weak voice he told her that he was here to talk about his university and mock test. As he was about to say this, he again was feeling the pressure, and the words wouldn't come out. As the darkness just blinded him, in the pitch-black abyss, a fish-shaped submarine entered his life, and from the side, Kero waved at him. As his eyes widened to see this sight, the darkness that haunted him forever, he started to overcome it little by little. Kero clenched his paw as well and looked at him with a determined look, telling him to say what he wanted to say. And with a loud voice, he told his teacher that he liked marine life more than anything. As he began to explain about how he fell in love with the sea creatures the moment he entered an aquarium, he tried his best to explain, and added how it might be impossible for him to enter the university, but he would try no matter what. As he was saying these words after so much frustration, from the side, an extroverted teacher mocked him and added how he should just try to do better in saying what he wants to say. As he laughed, he had gone through so much trouble just to say this, and one of his teachers just laughed at his attempt to speak. Now, as the sports teacher said all of this, his other teacher spun around, and with a cold voice she tells him to shut up, and while making a serious face, she lets him know that she is listening to his story, and if his dumb ass wasn't listening or isn't interested, he should just mind his own business and not bother her or the student. As the greatest teacher said this, she got up and told Hiroki to continue and added that they would surely change their location. As he smiled, he finally learned that if a person were to take the first step, there are always people who would support your second step. He thanked her from the bottom of his heart, and that day, he ended up meeting with Ikari one more time. Now that day, he was questioned by the police so hard that he became paranoid, and as Hiroki apologized, he mustered the courage to share their story about the collar he held the other day. Now Ikari smiled and told him to share it all with him, and there, Hiroki finally learned that if it is difficult to say something alone, it is best to say it with someone with you. As Kero helped brighten his life, Hiroki's world just changed, and he finally took another step forward.